I think it's fair to say that the lack of business that was done in January has been a source for concern for many West Ham fans for quite some time, actually. Well, let's be honest, since January, because West Ham simply, which seems to be a running theme with our club, we failed to capitalise on the situation. We failed to address what's really needed. I don't really understand what the real reasons are behind it, but let's be frank. But we as a club tend to struggle to get things done in January. I think there's a feeling in the club that business is not ideal in January, and I do kind of understand that prices get inflated because clubs are a bit desperate. So it's one of those times of the year you do feel like you don't want to be spending too much money and making too much change. But as a club, West Ham, we do fail to capitalise on what we need. It was quite evident from the business that we've done in terms of players outgoing that we needed a winger. We failed to get it done. Osman deal obviously fell through. He's now agreed to go to Brighton. Overall, it was basically a total cock-up, really, January. It wasn't a good period for the club in terms of how we conducted our business. However, on the slightly plus side at the time, West Ham brought in Kalvin Phillips from Manchester City. I for one, you can go back and look at the video. You don't have to. But I, for one, was really pleased with the signing. I thought it was a good piece of business to get a player of that calibre in on a loan deal, with the view that I thought he possibly would be joining permanently. Kalvin Phillips himself, when he joined, said that had it not been for Manchester City coming in for him while he was at Leeds, it was likely he was going to go to West Ham. That was where he was wanted to go. The reason being that David Moyes had identified Kalvin Phillips as a player he wanted at West Ham. He wanted him to partner Declan Rice in the West Ham midfield last season. Obviously, it didn't happen because he got his move to the Champions, and you can understand why. It's a big opportunity, isn't it, for a player to go and work for someone like Pep Guardiola for challenging for titles, win silverware. It's very, very difficult to turn that down. But I felt that, despite the frustrations of what the club did in January, I did feel that it would be a good move for the player to come down to West Ham, to work under the manager that's been wanting him for some time. But I think it's fair to say it's been an absolute disaster. I don't think it could have actually gone much worse other than him getting a horrific injury, maybe, something like that. There's not much else that could have gone wrong for Kalvin Phillips. And I'm talking, from day one, really, from kicking a ball in a West Ham shirt, it's been a disaster. If you remember, basically one of his first touches of the ball, wasn't it, against Bournemouth? He gave the ball away and they scored from it. It's been nothing other than a mess for the player. He has looked totally void of confidence and simply a player that is unrecognisable from the one that have done so well at Leeds, the one that earned him that move to Manchester City, the one that got him in the England squad. And to be honest, it weren't long ago Kalvin Phillips was being compared to Declan Rice. There was that argument, who is the better defensive midfielder? And I remember there being that question mark, well, would they be able to play together in England midfield? And we'd seen them play together and it worked really well. So I myself, when we were linked with Kalvin Phillips while he was at Leeds, I thought, can you imagine if we can have that England midfield at West Ham? And it could well have happened. Phillips himself, as I've said that it was very close. That was the club he wanted to really go to. It was more likely. But as I say, Pep came in for him and the rest is history. He's now at West Ham. And as I say, it's been a total disaster. And of course, now we've got further issues with the player in terms of how he's treated the fans when coming away from the Newcastle game. So what we understand at the moment is, which is, let's be honest, it's no great surprise. This isn't big, breaking news or anything like that. Is that Kalvin Phillips is not going to be kept on at West Ham. It's obvious. Of course, we're not going to keep him on at West Ham. It's remarkable to see a player actually of that quality and that highly regarded in the game, in terms of, what he's done for it so far and how well he did at Leeds. He's Leeds captain, he did very, very well there. To be in the position he's in now, which is simply just a player with so little confidence. I've been actually quite stunned by how poor he has been for West Ham. I've been waiting for it to change, waiting to see that player emerge. I feel for him. I want to make it very clear. I do feel for Kalvin Phillips, because it's not nice to see a player which has got quality that you know is a big character, you know that he's well liked in terms of, you know, his personality, etc. To see him in the way he is, because it's quite clear, both professionally and most likely personally, he's going through a really tough time at the moment. Because this move, which was supposed to kickstart his career again, get it back up and running, much like we saw with Jesse Lingard at West Ham, which I think was the hope, and I still think is the hope with David Moyes. I want to come back into that in a second. It just isn't happening. It's not only is it not happening, it's going the other way. It's getting worse. His career is falling further down since he's moved to West Ham on loan. Kalvin Phillips can't even get into the team when our defensive midfielder is not available. Because when I did the video when Phillips signed, I said, well, do you know what? Having Phillips available for West Ham now is going to have a major bonus for West Ham, because we've got a defensive midfielder who, by the way, is outstanding in Edson Alvarez, but he picks up a lot of bookings. He's continually getting carded during games. So he's always going to be suspended. There's always going to be issues with him. So it'd be great to have an England midfielder on the bench, someone that can step in and do the job, and someone hopefully that could partner him at times as well. I thought it was a match made in heaven, but it's been horrendous. Kalvin Phillips can't even get in the West Ham squad in the team when Edson Alvarez isn't available. I think that is a really, really sad situation, and one that must be hurting Phillips horrendously. It's quite astonishing, actually, to see what's happened to him. And that's the part I do feel for him in a way, because, you know, it's not nice to see people suffer. I don't really, you know, it just isn't. I mean, we've got players we've witnessed in the last few years that have struggled, gone through their struggles, that even players that I've not liked because of the teams they're associated with, Dele Alli being the prime example of that. A player that I've never liked fondly because of his obviously association with Tottenham and all that, etc. I've never been a big fan of him, but I've always admired him as a footballer. So to see him fall like he has is not nice. It's not nice to witness it. It's horrible. You feel for them. Do you know what I mean? You look at them and think, it must be awful to be in a position where you are not able to deliver the levels that you know you can. It's just not good. But there is a kind of, there's only so much sympathy you can give, isn't there? Because on the other side of it, you need to sort of say, well, okay, yes, but you are a professional footballer and you need to take some responsibility. And I think that's where I'm at with Phillips. As much as I'm sad to see the situation that he's in and do have sympathy for the player, I also do look at him at times and feel like, but you don't come across hungry enough to me. I don't see a player, when he has represented West Ham, a player that's desperate to prove himself. And I appreciate that people will say, yeah, but he hasn't really been playing for City. That's why he's rusty. And yeah, of course, I do understand that a little bit. But that's no, so he hasn't been playing no football. And he has been training continuously during this time. So it's not as if he's not been playing football. It's not as if he's been out for 2 years injured and then he's been thrown back into a Premier League game and we're expecting miracles. That isn't the case with it. And I'm tired of the media narrative that keeps coming around about Phillips saying his start to life at West Ham hasn't been good. His start at West Ham hasn't been great. It isn't the start. He joined in January. We're in bloody April. Only got a couple of months to go and the season's done. He's going back. This isn't the start. It's nearing the end. And he needs to take some responsibility. So I've been frustrated in that regard. But I will say, I think that the situation that we saw after the Newcastle game. Now, I'm referring here to when, I'm sure you've seen it, with Kalvin Phillips sticking his finger up as he's getting on the coach to leave the St James's Park. Now, if you remember in that game, I don't want to go over it, of course, we were leading 3-1, 20 minutes to go. Phillips comes on for Antonio. Everyone's a bit annoyed by that substitution, myself included. I think it was a stupid substitution, personally, when you were doing so well in a game. I'm still reeling from it. I'm still angry about it. I'll be honest. It's going to take a little while for that one to calm down. But Phillips took the brunt of the situation because he gave away a penalty soon after coming on, which sort of turned the tide of the game because Newcastle then scored from it and then went on, and the rest is history. We ended up winning the game. And Phillips obviously got, once again, he was at fault. But he wasn't good in the game either. It was not as if he played really well, but it was unfortunate. And I do feel sorry for him in that situation because I do think it was a harsh decision. It wasn't his fault. He was trying to clear the ball and Anthony Gordon puts his boot out in front of him and he catches his leg. I mean, it's one of those things. There's a debate going on about it. Is it a penalty? Is it not? I'm sort of, I think it was harsh, very harsh. I can kind of understand it in a way because he has kicked the player. Is that the rule? I don't know, but it is harsh. It does feel very, very harsh from Phillips. But I didn't see a performance, though, regardless of that, from Phillips after that warranted any sympathy, though, because he just isn't playing. He's just not working hard enough, not trying hard enough. But I'll tell you what, the situation with the fans is the one I think that it just puts the nail in the coffin for his time at West Ham. You just don't do that. You just don't do it. Kalvin Phillips was walking onto the coach and looks at a group of West Ham. He's aiming it at someone that shouted to him, "You're useless," right? One, that's not much of an insult, is it? You're useless. I mean, I'm no footballer, right? But I can imagine most footballers have heard a lot more than "you're bloody useless." Do you know what I mean? A lot worse. If someone had said something horrendously personal to him about him and his family or something like that, I'd have sympathy. I'd understand it. Going, I'm going to respond to that. I'm not tolerating that. He didn't get that. He got called useless. Now, people will say, some people will go, well, you shouldn't be abusing footballers. And all right, there's a fair point to that. But at the same time, it kind of comes to the territory, doesn't it? You're a footballer. You know what you're walking into. You know the life. Are you telling me Kalvin Phillips hasn't been abused by other fans? Oh, come on. Far worse than probably every week. It's part and parcel of the game. He probably has more banter, more digs getting in from fellow teammates every day in training, mucking about. You're useless. It doesn't warrant that kind of response. And you're not doing it to one bloke, are you? You're doing it to a group of fans. And it's just the nail in the coffin. And it epitomises everything that's happened to Phillips since he's moved to West Ham. It has been shockingly bad. I can't believe I'm saying it. I really thought I'd be singing his praises in a West Ham shirt, and saying, do you know what, we should be getting him in the summer. We should be getting Phillips. I mean, it's no way would West Ham sign him now. No way. Never in a million years is that player coming to West Ham. They're talking about 30, 40 million for him. 30, 40 million for him. Not a chance. I'd be surprised they got 15 million for him. I'd be surprised. If they got 15 million for Phillips, I think that would be probably the best you're going to get. And I really do mean that. It's a really sad scenario, actually, of what's happened to him. Really sad to witness it. And as I say, I've got sort of two sides to this. I feel, as I say, I do have sympathy for the player in some regards. I think that the comment made by Pep Guardiola not too long ago regarding his weight, I think it's really not helped him at all in terms of his confidence. I feel, and Guardiola himself publicly come out, hasn't he, and apologised to the player. But there's a lot going on there. But I'll tell you one thing, and I know that please don't think I'm having a go at him. Please don't think I'm having I'm taking it's a cheap opportunity to have a dig. I'm really not. But this is not a good look for David Moyes either. This is another name, another expensive cock up from West Ham and the manager. This is another mistake that's been made on a Moyes appointment that he desperately wanted. And you might be saying, well, there's not many of it, but Nigel Gird's another one. Another very expensive player he brought for the door that's been a bad signing for West Ham. We've seen a few of them now. Vlasic, Skamaka. We've seen quite a few of these signings now that are simply not good enough and not delivered for West Ham. Kalvin Phillips, it might be a loan, but it's expensive. I think West Ham are paying around about 8 million quid for this for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of money. A lot of money. 5 months, in fact. It's a lot of money. So it's hard to see how David Moyes comes out of this one looking good. David Moyes publicly has made it very clear he wanted Kalvin Phillips at West Ham for a long time. David Moyes was expecting a Jesse Lingard-esque impact. I was. Maybe not with goals and assists and stuff, but with that kind of impact, a positive impact he'd have on the side. I thought his character would be great for West Ham. I thought the fans would take to him quite well. But doing that to the fans, sticking your fingers up, is just... I don't think there's a comeback to it. I don't think you can come back from that situation. But at the end of the day, regardless of what happens really with Phillips now, because let's be frank, if Kalvin Phillips can't get in the side, can't even get on the pitch as a substitute appearance, when our defensive midfielder's not even in the squad, he's sitting in the stands behind me, by the way, with Paul Pogba. Was weird there. I don't know if no one saw that, but anyway, Paul Pogba was there. I'm talking about the other night against Tottenham. If Phillips can't get on the pitch, then what bloody hopes he got? Do you know what I mean? What future does he have at West Ham? He hasn't got one. He's going back to City, and they will try and flog him. No doubt he'll probably go Leeds. If Leeds come up, I think he'll go Leeds or wherever he'll go. He'll go somewhere. But the top side clubs don't touch him. But, barge pole. But what it is going to do, it's another mark against David Moyes' name. 100%. If I was the owner of a football club, I'd be fuming over this. So this is the loan signing. This is the money we've spent out from this guy. What's going on? Can't even kick a ball for us. It's bad. It's a bad look. So yeah, Kalvin Phillips deal, definitely not happening. Kalvin Phillips going back to Man City at the end of the season. I mean, it could even be sooner, couldn't it? The way things are going. It really could be. It wouldn't surprise me. It actually wouldn't surprise me. It won't happen. I don't think it will happen. I think he will stay to the end. But unless, of course, there's an injury. But it's been. But this is not a good look for David Moyes. Let's get this straight. This is not good. The owners will be very upset with this. This is another waste of money. Bearing in mind, we didn't do any business in January apart from this. And when it's all said and done, regardless of what happens this season, David Moyes has got a lot to answer for when it comes to Kalvin Phillips.